in our sort of insurance hats on, we felt very inclined not to go for it, but there was an overreaching kind of desire for us as iTOOs to be more involved with this iconic event, and that is the case. We have done event liability, which is something we do within the event product suite, and we wanted to back the opportunity this year for the runner that broke the record, either man or woman. And so, as much as we applied our underwriting hats to this, there was a great deal of passion and energy, and you can hear from the panel that everybody feels deeply about this event. So we perhaps put our underwriting hats down a little bit, and we stepped forward. And I think, Justin, as you intimated when I phoned you at the end of the race, the first 3 words out of your mouth were, "You are fired." So it was not an ideal insurance decision, but it's a passionate South African event decision, and we stand together as a team on this one. So Melita, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the theoretical side and what we did there.
And yeah, Melita, sure. Maybe if I could just ask you, Melita, if you could maybe just, I think it would be interesting for people to hear, let's talk the specifics of what we actually insured for Comrades this weekend, how it played out, and maybe a bit of general how this sort of insurance is a great thing for events like we're seeing now unfold for Comrades.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think people forget, they focus on the events liability, which we also do, and events cancellation, which is also an aspect of what we do. But the kind of more fun aspect, if you like, is the prize indemnity or contract bonus, where we will help the sponsor or the organizer to be able to give a large prize by effectively having them transfer their risk to us. In case a record is broken or a certain level of achievement is reached, then we're able to assist with actually handing out the prize. And contract bonus is the one that deals with sport and athletes, and them actually either breaking records or reaching certain levels of the competition. So it's a combination of things. We look at the prize money, obviously, and then we look at the probabilities or statistics. So there's a great deal of delving into athletic performance and the way that the athletes in the particular event have been performing in the recent past, to be able to try and see whether there's a chance that the record will be broken or not. Now, normally with insurance, if it's like a guaranteed thing, then that's not insurance, right? That's more like a sponsorship. But there's sort of an interim ground, if you like, between them having a guaranteed result and there's a chance that they would receive the result. Here, the chance was quite high, which is what Greg was alluding to. So although we knew there would be a really good chance, particularly with the women's race, that the record would be broken, we decided to go ahead. So we sponsored the full amount, sponsored, there we go. There's a Freudian slip for you. We underwrote the full amount for the men of 500,000 Rand if they broke the record. And with the women, because there was a much higher chance, we thought in our minds, of Gerda actually breaking the record, we came in at 50% of the prize money that would be awarded. So we were in for the 250, which is why if you've been seeing some headlines in the press and in certain publications, it's iTOO pays out 750K, and that's exactly how that is made up. So it's one of those ones where it's a win-win for us. If they didn't break the record, well, that's disappointing, but obviously we wouldn't pay out the claim. But if they did break the record, then we could celebrate with them. And so it's a lovely insurance, because normally we get involved when things go wrong. So it's lovely to fight and celebrate achievement.
Thank you very much to Melita and Greg. I'd like to get into a little bit of the discussion from Bruce now. So Greg, if you could just do a little bit of a brief introduction to Bruce. He doesn't need much of an introduction, a legendary South African. And then I think if we could just leave sort of 10-15 minutes at the end before 11 o'clock, it would be great to have some discussion with Warwick and Bruce a little bit more in deep about Comrades. So Greg, if you could just give a bit of an intro, and then Bruce, over to you, and we're looking forward to hearing some of your story.
And just very briefly before I do the introduction, I just want to clarify for everyone out there, because I was asked this question a few times, but notwithstanding the fact that we only underwrote 50% of the women's prize, that's the insurance piece. Obviously, both prize winners got the full prize money, and that would come from Comrades themselves. So just for clarity purposes. So Bruce, over to you. I think just very briefly, I don't believe that you need much introduction. You are iconic. You're associated with this iconic event, and always will be. I think the sense that you have dominated it in the time that you did, the 9 wins, your 8 consecutive. Your passion for the sport comes through massively in your commentary, but also your empathy for those that come behind, the likes that try and break their times, and your understanding of that. I mean, I've read a number of very good quotes. You talk about training being a science, but racing being an art. And I think, we'd love to hear from you more about how you see that, particularly in the record-breaking elements, but also for those people that just want to get to the finish line and evolve. So we know you're a real Joburger at heart, and that you have passion for the city, an African city, as you call it. You have publications. I hope you'll tell us a little bit about that, and some of the stuff that you've been doing, in these years. And I know that you're always talking to running clubs and runners and encouraging through. So it's a great honor and a privilege to have you on, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. So thank you for joining us.
Well, okay, great. Thank you. Can you hear me properly?
We can, yes, yeah, all good.
Great,
Yeah, thank
fantastic. You. Okay, so what I thought I would do, and what I've been asked to do is talk about Sunday, but and also a bit about myself, but use that as a kind of a parallel, a guide, so that hopefully there'll be 1 or 2 business messages that might come out from my talk. So I'm going to keep it lighthearted and a couple of jokes and things in it, but hopefully you'll see the parallels are obvious. So I think, just to start off with straight away, I think Sunday was completely extraordinary. And afterwards, yesterday, I have a post Comrades Bruce Fordyce after party, and people come to the party, and just every single person who was there just underlined the fact that there was something special about Sunday's race. And so many people achieved their goals on Sunday. So if you'd made a phone call to me before about the underwriting, I would have said, both records are going. I would have told you they're going. It's going to be perfect weather. It's a short down run, the shortest down run in the history of the race. And there was just something about the mood. People just, when the gun went, people just took off, and that's it. I'm going for my medal. I'm going for my time. And obviously, Gerda and Tete's times were phenomenal. But you look at, you look at a runner yesterday. I was talking to a runner yesterday who ran 5 hours and 31 minutes and came 15th. Well, I've won a down run in 5 hours and 34 minutes. So this poor guy ran 5 hours 31 and came 15th. But just quickly before I start, Warwick, something you said I agree with completely. I think that finishing the Comrades is totally life-changing, and it changes you forever, and it makes you aware that you can do anything, whether it's a business challenge, personal challenge, sporting challenge, whatever it might be. Once you've run Comrades and you've been in that moment when you have to keep going, and only you can do it, you learn forever that if it's important enough, you will complete that task. So I completely agree with you. And one of the things that I always ask runners to do in the Comrades, if they can remember, near the end, when you know you're going to make it, I always say to them, try and freeze a moment. Freeze a moment when you realize I'm going to make it, and remember it forever. So in my own case, I froze a moment in the 1988 Comrades because I had a big lead. And whenever I'm disappointed with myself, feeling lonely, feeling a bit depressed, or something's gone wrong, I can just go back to that 1988 moment. 3 kilometers to go, I had a 12-minute lead, and I can defrost that moment, so to speak, and remember exactly what it was like to be running down that road, heading towards the finish. And it doesn't matter whether you're heading to the finish to win or just heading for a finish. Whenever I need to, and as soon as I go back there and I remember it, I just start smiling. You smile, you just think, wow, you did that. And so it is an extraordinary race. And just by chance, it's amazing that you did get hold of me to give this talk. I happen to have all my gear with me because I'm driving back from Durban. So For those of you who are green numbers, I don't have my green number tattooed on my back, but I'm wearing my shirt at Green Number Club for green number. And I happen to, because we go to a number of functions, if you're a winner, a little bit like the Masters blazer, if you're a winner, they give you a winner's blazer. So I happen to have that as well. There's my winner's blazer, which I was wearing yesterday. And then amazing, if you want Warwick, if you want to see, I know you've got medals, but I'll show you a really impressive medal. Here's an impressive medal. That's the winner's medal. And that's what Gerda yesterday called the big G. This is the big gold. So she's got one of those yesterday. So I think I'm going to start off by saying nothing, whether it's business or the comrades, nothing is possible without those two words, hard work, incredibly hard work. And I spoke for 13 hours on Sunday doing the TV coverage. So every now and again, I might have to just clear my throat. But luckily, Gerda pitched up at my after party yesterday, and what a champion she is. She is one of the biggest assets for that race. She has time for everybody. She poses for photographs, signs, autographs, never stops smiling. And, I've got a little bit of that. I know you get pushed and pulled by people all over the place. And I love the one person who said to Gerda yesterday, Gerda, you're my biggest fan. You are my biggest fan. I know what they meant. They meant I'm your biggest fan, Gerda, but you're my biggest fan. But he underlined the fact that her biggest week in training was 190 kilometers. So to put that into perspective, that's running twice a day. That's morning, evening. And that includes hill sessions. She lives at a place in the Alps at high altitude. She trains there. That means running up and down a steep hill, doing track work, speed work, long runs, the whole thing, 190 kilometers a week, and she actually told us the total number of kilometers she ran from January through to June was 3,300. So she ran 3,300 kilometers. And all of that would have been done at around about the pace that you have to run in Comrades, which for her would have been about, she was kind of averaging just over 4 minutes a kilometer yesterday, which is, on Sunday, which is just phenomenal. So it's a lot of hard work. And now it's going to sound like I've had a drink and I've got a hangover from my party yesterday, because I'm going to go off on a tangent and you're going to think, what's he talking about? But it is relevant to my talk.
You fit in nicely with iTOO, Bruce.
Yeah. So this is going to sound odd, but Jill, my wife and I, we met the Queen. We met the Queen, and I don't mean Freddie Mercury. We met the Queen. And what happened was, I did some work quite a few years ago for the John Major Conservative government in Britain. And I won't bore you with all that, but it would involve sports sponsorship. And I helped out quite a lot with that. And a few months after that, the Queen visited South Africa. And I suppose because of the work that I had done, I was invited to a reception to meet the Queen, but not just me alone. There were like 200 people at this particular function. And I got this invitation in my post, which was just, I've kept it, in a special envelope with sealing wax on it. And it's got the Queen's seal, it's stuck in it, which is amazing. And then open this thing, and it was from the High Commissioner of Great Britain. So it was from the High Commissioner of Great Britain to South Africa, Sir Anthony Reeve, to Mr. Bruce Fordyce, Esquire. I am commanded by Her Majesty the Queen to invite you to a reception. Please RSVP. Well, you're not going to say, no, I was actually planning on having a braai with my mates that night or whatever. You're definitely going to go. So that turned out to be the most expensive decision ever, because I had to get new shoes. And Jill, my wife, had to get a new dress. I said to her, Jill, the Queen's never seen any of your dresses. But that didn't work. New dress. And off we go. And you get given a list of instructions. If you meet the Queen, how you have to behave, and you're going to have your name. You've got your name in bold letters so she can read it if you get introduced to her. But it's never going to happen to me, because I was just a lowly sportsman. The politicians and the businessmen spending billions with Britain, those are the people who are in front of the queue to meet the Queen. But you get sent these instructions. If you meet the Queen, you have to call her Your Majesty the first time. You have to bow. Women, you curtsy. And then you have to call her ma'am thereafter. You call her ma'am to rhyme with jam, not mom. Mom apparently is the owner of a brothel. So you have to call her ma'am. No, you can call that. Don't call her mom. She'll get upset. It's ma'am. And then you're not allowed to ask the queen any questions. She asks the question. And you can't touch the queen. But if she does shake your hand, she'll have gloves on and she shakes her hand. And you can't turn your back on the queen. You have to walk away backwards. Literally walk away backwards from the queen until you're a suitable distance away, and then you can walk away. So, but anyway, I'm never going to meet the queen. We go to this function, Jill and I, and we're milling around, and they paint 2 tram lines on the ground. They paint 2 tram lines, like tram lines of a tennis court, and that's where the queen's going to walk. And so you try and stand on the edge of those tram lines, you see, and there's a huge, massive scrum of people trying to stand there for their chance to meet the queen and get a photograph with the queen. And then at this function, and in she came, and astonishing, you look at the queen, she looked, I mean, she's no longer with us, but she looked exactly like the queen. You know, it's the queen, there's no mistaking her. She's got a little tiara on to just to underline the fact. And she walked down this row of people, and the High Commissioner is introducing her to various people. But as she got opposite me, directly opposite me, the High Commissioner was looking for somebody important that she should meet. And he just abandoned her for a second or two. And so she was there. So she turned and she looked straight at me, and our eyes locked. I mean, she was looking straight at me. And the reason was mainly because she's the same height as me. So that's why our eyes locked, and she walked straight towards me. And I realized, no, she's going to talk to me. She's going to talk to me. And as you can see, I'm quite at ease giving a talk. I'm not nervous or that kind, you know, I'm happy with people. I'm not an introvert, but the queen, that's a different level. And it just emphasized for me that she had been queen during the time of 15 different US presidents. Her first president was Eisenhower, then Kennedy, you know, those people, Kennedy, Carter, Reagan, all those names. She was queen. And then her own prime ministers, her first prime minister when she was queen was Churchill. So Churchill, you know, Thatcher, all those great names. And so then she came up to me and started talking, and we're chatting away. And so it's a bit of a long story to illustrate a short point, and she said to me, "Oh, Mr. Fordyce, tell me, what do you do?" So I told her, "Your Majesty, I'm a marathon runner." And she said, "Oh, how interesting." And she had been with children in the morning in Soweto doing sport. So that was uppermost in her mind. So the Queen spent the longest time of anybody in that whole line out talking to me about how you sportsman, you mustn't take your secrets with you to the grave. You must teach the youngsters. You must make them jolly fit. You must make them healthy. So that was the whole conversation with the Queen. And then right at the end, and this is the relevance of why I brought her into this thing, but also just to show off that I met the Queen, was that she said to me, "Mr. Fordyce, I do hope you'll forgive me, but I always thought that marathon runners had to be big and powerful and strong, and you appear to be anything but." I said, "No, Your Majesty, and here's my point. You've got to be just like me, strong heart, good lungs, very strong legs, and no brain cells, because it's a really stupid thing to do." And she laughed. She said, "Oh, yes, it is a very silly thing to do." And so that was our conversation. But my point about that is standing next to Gerda yesterday, standing next to Tete Dijana the day before, it is, at the end of the day, it's genetic. We're all the same height. We've got the same strong legs, the same good heart and lungs. And no brain cells. What a stupid thing to do. But at the end of the day, and it's same as in business, you're competing against people who are as strong and as powerful and as motivators as you are. So how do you beat them? You know, well, one of the ways is the hard work you put in. It's the hard work you put in, making sure that you can get yourself into a state as Gerda was on Sunday to run with a record. And as I said, I would have told you that record's gone. The record was gone the moment Gerda put her entry in. And I'm telling you right now, the record for next year's up run, it's gone. I'm telling you that now. Go and Gerda's running next.
Just note that, Greg.
So you're breaking up, Bruce. You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
No,
I'm joking. You're joking. Yeah. I think the men's record that'll be hard to break. That's hard to break. But the ladies' record, Gerda she's getting better and better every year. And she's going to do the double of Two Oceans and Comrades next year. So yeah, but I think one of the things that comes out of a remarkable day on Sunday. Just an absolute, I mean, it is astonishing. I bumped into two Americans at the entrance of the hotel that I was staying, that I was staying at, and both of them, they said to me, "Comrades, just absolutely iconic." And they had both run the Boston Marathon, which is the world's oldest marathon. It's very famous. I mean, I've run the Boston, and I'm very proud of the fact that I've got a Boston medal. But they said to me, "Comrades," they said, "it's Boston on steroids. It's Boston on steroids." They said, because the whole of South Africa, I mean, 13 hours coverage. When do you have 13 hours coverage? They don't do that in the States. They show the winners coming in and they cut. They'll go off to something else. 13 hours, and just all you see is the most extraordinary human beings. I mean, we win. Gerda, myself, we win. But behind us come the most incredible human beings, who didn't choose their parents correctly. They're not genetically suited to it, and yet they do just incredibly well. And that's some of the greatest heroes. You just see them all day long crossing that line. But I think the underlying point about it all, and I think it applies to business, is that we do it because it's great fun. It's fun. It's fun testing yourself. It's fun challenging yourself. It's fun reaching new heights. It's fun improving. I mean, it's not a lot of fun when Warwick, you'll agree with me, when you're in Pinetown on a down run. That's not a lot of fun with 18 Ks to go.
And still cowies to come.
Cowies to come. It's hot and muggy in Pinetown. The last 5 working vuvuzelas are still going off. They're in Pinetown, and they go off in your ear as you go through Pine. But at the end of the day, as I walked in, I'm in a restaurant on the way here, just to try and find a fairly quiet spot. You walk in and there's a lady there limping. She's limping to her table. I said to her, "How was it?" She said, "Oh, it was so tough." I said, "Are you coming back next year?" You just look and say, "Of course." So that's the magic of Comrades, and I think it's the magic of any great goal that you go for. But having said that, yesterday, Gerda was at pains to say she would not have won, she would not have broken the record if it wasn't for her team. And I think that's important to remember. In your business, it's the team that helps you achieve things. And it's exactly the same for her. She had 10 seconds, 10 people looking after her on the road, positioned at certain key points where they can give her drink and tell her what her split is. And a split, for those of you who don't know, who are not runners, a split is the gap between you and the runner in front, or the gap between you and the runner behind you, whatever. In Gerda's case, there isn't a runner in front. So it's a runner behind, how far behind her. And she just paid tribute to all of them, and then particularly to her husband, her husband Duncan, who looks after her. Who, he in his own right is incredibly successful. He's the captain. He's a captain of an A380 jumbo jet. He flies. That's what he does. And he says, "I've got a job that's really prestigious." I mean, you walk into an airport, he said, "I've got all those stripes over me." He said, "I walk into an airport with all that gear because I've just flown us here, and Gerda's been in the plane with me, and they just mob her, and I stand there alone." But the team, I think, is essential. And he made us laugh because he said, "You can't believe it. I'm limping worse than Gerda because I tore one of my muscles in my leg jumping off the motorbike to get the drink to her." But those are the people who are absolutely essential. And then I think linked to that, sorry, I'm just having a sip of water, but
Bruce, don't overhydrate. That's just as bad as dehydration.
Timothy warns you to overhydrate. But linked to teamwork, I think, and the two are quite closely linked, is leadership and teamwork. And it's quite interesting that all of us, particularly in this call, all of us are members of a team. I mean, I was a member of a team on Sunday, the broadcast team, without the whole, without everybody there, from the makeup lady to the person who brings you coffee, everybody's part of that team. But at certain times, each of us is a leader. Every single one of us is a leader. We have to make decisions. So in my case on Sunday, it would be, we have a little button that we can push on our panel when we're talking, and I can push that button, and that button gives me direct contact with Sean, who's the producer of the whole show. And I can say, "Sean, we need to go to the ladies' race. Look what's happening in the ladies' race. Go to that camera." And then he'll judge it and say, "Yeah, I agree." So at that point, I'm the leader. I'm telling him what to do. I know it's a bit of a trite example, but in Comrades as well. I mean, the front of the race, talking to Gerda, it's the front of the race is a lonely place. I mean, it's a lonely, but as a leader, she said she had to make that decision. She had drifted ahead. She had drifted a little bit ahead of Carla Molinaro, who landed up finishing third, who ran a magnificent race, by the way, magnificent race, and didn't win. But she said she had drifted ahead, and she just suddenly thought, what do I do here? And at that point, she saw Duncan, her husband, who was part of her seconding team, and she shouted at him, "I think this is the time." And he said, "Go." So it was the team, but it was her decision. And she said, "This is as good a time as any." And she just went for it. And she said the next thing, she had a 2-minute lead, then a 3-minute lead, and then she's going. So that's a kind of leadership thing that I think is important. And I think many people envy leadership. So, they envy your roles as leaders. They might envy the fancy salary, the car, the title. In her case, the fame, the being in the newspapers, one of those. And then a subject that's slightly bitter for me, prize money. You wouldn't have had to worry in my day. There was none, but I'm not upset. But nine wins times $500,000. It's not bad, but I'm not upset. Got nothing. And then you would have had to top up quite a bit, because I broke the record 5 times. In my 9 wins, I broke the record 5 times. So, but I'm not upset.
Bruce, I'm just scratching that question off my list for you just now. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not upset. But no, what's also funny. I mean, Gerda's the second time she's won. It's the second time she's broken the record at Comrades. She said she's done it at 2 Oceans, and we both agreed. I mean, she's getting. I think by the time all her bonuses are in, shoe bonus, club bonus, she'll be getting close to 2 million rand. And she said, but a few years later, you've spent it, and it's gone. It's in the house, or whatever you did, whatever you did. She said, they can never take this away from you. They can never take. And long ago, the very legendary Wally Hayward, who I'll talk about now, the very great Wally Hayward, who, by the way, in all of our opinions, is the greatest Comrades runner ever. He won 5 times as a young man. He was never defeated. He was never lost in his heyday. But he's more famous, and his greatest achievements are running Comrades at the age of 80. And I mean, there's an example for you of somebody who just breaks barriers. And I think that's what in business and in sport, what do we want to be? Who do we want? We want to be barrier breakers, saying it can be done when everybody else is saying it can't be done. And Gerda, she broke the record, and she's already saying she's going to go for the record going up. In Wally Hayward's case, the age of 80, he ran the Up Comrades, 1988 Up Comrades in 9 3/4 hours. And Warwick, you'll know what that is. That's a great time. And there's a beautiful example for business and for everything. You don't necessarily have to be number 1 to be a winner. Wally Hayward did not win the 1988 Comrades. I did. And I hope you can hear there's a little bit of bitterness there in my voice, because Wally got all the attention, all the media attention, all the people wanting autographs that day, because he beautifully illustrated you don't have to be number 1 to be a winner. He ran Comrades at the age of 80. You're supposed to be retired, sitting in an armchair watching television, not running Comrades. And Wally illustrated that beautifully. And then to go back to my original point, the message that Wally sadly is no longer with us, but the message that he would have for Gerda and that he had for me is just always remember one thing. You borrow records, but you keep titles. And that was what he meant by that is he was the record holder once at Comrades. He was the first runner to go under 6 hours. And he would have been completely mind-boggled on Sunday to see Gerda not go under 6 hours, go substantially under 6 hours, 5 hours and 43 minutes. He would have, and so what he always says is we record holders are given the record to look after and to treasure and to honor, but at a certain point you have to accept, I'm handing it on to the next person. And what was lovely was Gerda said that she received a message from Frith van der Merwe yesterday. She got a message from Frith to say, well done, I can't think of a greater person to hand the message on to, but you keep titles. And so Gerda forever will be the 2023 ladies marathon champion. Somebody somewhere, it seems impossible because it's 5:43 so far, but somebody somewhere is going to break that record one day. And to put it into perspective, Gerda ran 5:43. In 1980, I came second to Alan Robb. So I finished second and I ran 5:40. So Gerda would have been 3 minutes behind me and 4 minutes behind Alan in 1980. It's mind-boggling, you know. But anyway, so yeah, so I think one of the important things is, I think all of us in business and in sport, I think we need to have that mindset where we say we can do it, we can break that barrier, it can be done. It's going to be difficult. These are the steps that I'm going to have to take. And then the key thing, I'm just keeping an eye on, I'm mindful of the time so that we have time for questions. The key is that it's how you break up those barriers. And I think Comrades is it's an iconic race for so many reasons, but one of them is it teaches you how to break a barrier, whether it's a business barrier or a sporting barrier, because what it does sadistically is in Comrades, they put the distance markers in reverse order. Yeah. And Warwick, you'll bear me out. Any other marathon that you run in the world, the gun goes, you run for a little while and you pass a board that says 1. And it's like a little tick, 1, I've done 1. If it's a British or American marathon, you say, oh, I've done 1 mile. You know, if it's a South African one, it's 1 kilometer. But you kind of get little rewards like that. But in Comrades, it's reverse order. So when the sun comes up, and I'm just smiling because I'm looking out the window and there's a lady going down the stairs and she's going backwards. So she ran yesterday. She ran on Sunday. But in Comrades, you run for a while, and when the sun comes up, you'll see a distance marker that says 77 kilometers to go. What does that mean? It just means it's far. It just means it's ridiculous. So what I love about Comrades is breaking it down into landmarks. I run Comrades in landmarks, and you mentioned it earlier. One of you, I can't remember who said that, quoted from the fact from me saying that the training for Comrades is a science. You follow all the rules. You do X number of long runs. You do speed work. You do you follow a special diet. But the race itself is an art. You have to feel what are the conditions like. On Sunday, the conditions were perfect for a fast time. So go for it. And then you kind of almost paint your own picture, and you do it by getting the landmarks behind you. So, you know, you say on a down run, you say, let me get to the bottom of Polly Shorts. And I hope when I get to the bottom of Polly Shorts, my legs are absolutely perfect. I can't feel anything. They'll be great. Yes, they are. Then let's get to Last Road, the highest point on the course. Let's get there. Okay, got that behind me. Now let's get to Camperdown Village. I'm just waving at another one of the runners. It's a place full of runners. Let's get to Cater Ridge. Let's get halfway behind us. And then right at the end, you can start to break it down into kilometers. I mean, once you see 10 to go, well, that's my morning run. I've got 10 to go. That's what I do in the morning. I've got 5 to go. You know, I'm nearly there. And that, I think, is the way you break down a great barrier. I think, again, Comrades illustrates it so beautifully. What is the most important ingredient in anything, in business, in sport, in a relationship, in a hobby? The most important ingredient is that word you can't successfully translate from the Afrikaans, that word fussbait. I love fussbait. And I like the fact that Comrades illustrates, I mean, it's the ultimate in fussbait, because everybody's hurting in the last 20 Ks, and yet everybody keeps going. And what do? They just hang in there. They hang in, and they don't give up. They just keep on going. Beautifully illustrated by all the runners yesterday. And I think it's the single most important ingredient, because, you know, it's fantastic. I would love to have the speed of a Usain Bolt. You know, that's a superstar. That's a shining star. That's a flash. But it's 10 seconds. Well, it's 9 seconds. I much prefer the people who don't burst into flame. They smolder gently. They smolder gently through the whole race and through the whole challenge, whether it's a business one, whatever, and they just don't ever stop. And we all know that there are setbacks. There are things that go wrong. That deal that you were hoping you'd get doesn't happen. That moment in Comrades when you suddenly start thinking, oh my goodness, I'm cramping. Now what do? It's how you handle it, and you prepare for it. And what do you do? What actually do? You fuss bait. You hang on, and you just don't stop. And so kind of just maybe a last thought is that for me, one of the most important things also about business and in sport and successful people, successful businesses, is that they also understand there is no arrival point. There's no point when you say, I've done it, and now I can sit back and be content. And I would have thought, when I won my first Comrades, and this, funny enough, I just grabbed a medal, but it's from my first one, 1981. If you told me before, I would have said, yeah, once I've won, I'll sit back and be content. And it just doesn't work like that. We, all of us, and I'm including all of us here, are not those kind of people. We never sit back and rest on our laurels and say we've done it. I mean, Gerda, having won, you would think, and having broken the record, you think she'd say, wow, okay, I've done it. You must see how motivated she is to win next year. She's already planned the whole of next year. I can tell you her plans are. She wants to run a fast marathon at the end of the year, so she gets an Olympic qualifying time. Then in April next year, she wants to win 2 Oceans again with a record. June the 9th next year, Comrades with the record, and then the Olympic Games. So she's already got that. So she's saying to herself, I'm not even remotely arrived yet. And in my own case, you'd think, well, okay, now I can no longer win Comrades. I'm more motivated than ever. And I know one of you touched on it, to keep on going. And now my new passion, apart from being part of Comrades, and to be honest with you, if you're a past winner of Comrades, it is the biggest ego trip of your life that weekend. Everybody wants a photograph with you. Everybody wants an autograph. We get spoiled. It's an incredible, it's just amazing to be a past winner. But now my great passion is something that I started with Jill, my wife, and that's parkrun. And I'm sure some of you know parkrun, 5Ks, free timed run or walk on a Saturday morning. I would never have believed when I started running Comrades that would never have believed that I would be interested in a 5K race, but the 5Ks has now become the most important distance in my life. It's so incredible. We've got 200 different events. We're busy setting up more. And here's a beautiful thing. Registered members of parkrun, 1.3 million people, so that really is where we are. Just absolutely, we're so excited, and I'm still driven. I'm still completely driven. So just to finish off, there's a poster, a running shoe poster that you see hanging in some of the sports stores that I think sums it up very nicely for all of us and for you. And thank you for having me as your speaker. This has been the most unusual, but actually quite interesting and to do. But this is running shoe poster that you see hanging in sports stores, and it's got this kind of beautiful classic picture of a country road weaving its way between a lake, and there's some pine trees, and it's all covered in orange because it's sunrise or sunset. And there's a photo of a runner running there. It's a beautiful scene, and I think it sums it up nicely for all of us. And I'm not going to give you the name of the running shoe company that makes the poster because they don't sponsor me. Nobody sponsors me anymore. So I know that, Warwick, I know the feeling of buying my own shoes. I haven't bought shoes for 40 years, and now I have to. But this running shoe poster, I think it sums it up nicely for all of us. On that poster, it says, "For winners, there is no finish line." So thanks very much, guys. I hope that's
Bruce,
okay. Maybe
that's
let's
wonderful.
chat.
Thank you. And sorry we caught you halfway back to Joburg, but it's a good time to bring Warwick in, I think. I want to make one point before Justin jumps in. Your point about breaking barriers is exactly the view we took, from an I2 point of view, is that we're going to back this opportunity. We had a lot of that information you spoke about at our fingertips, and we still made a decision to back the record-breaking opportunity. And I think for us it was more about being part of this iconic event, and that for us is brilliant. And to see that she's now made a donation is even more, and we need some good news in South Africa at the moment, and this is really good news.
If I can interrupt, I think you made an absolutely stunning decision, unbelievable decision. But now maybe get it out there more that what you did, because I think what you did is a gift to the race, as a gift to the people of South Africa.
Yeah. Thank you. And we, the 5 of us this morning, were standing around in the coffee shop just talking about this, and we've made a commitment to be part of this event in a bigger way going forward. And
Yeah, it's
Justin, I'm going to
fantastic.
spend your money, Justin, now, so I'm going to make a commitment that I too is going to be part of the Comrades going forward, and we look forward to more interactions with you. But maybe Justin, you want to say something, and then we bring Warwick in. He's got a few questions for you, Bruce.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
The audience.
And great to keep this as an informal conversation. Bruce, really lovely to be chatting to you. And I think there's lots of people commenting on the chat group, so lots of people will want to ask some questions.
Yeah, sure.
So Greg, I think Bruce might have just saved you your job for another year. But of course,
Thank you, Bruce. I need running shoes, by the way, because I'm going to run the race.
It's one of the claims that certainly as a business we were really happy to pay. When this claim came through and we had to cough up and pay, it was one of the claims that we were really chuffed as a business to pay, because look at this great conversation and great story that we're having around paying a claim. So really proud to be paying this claim and supporting this event. Warwick, I'd like you to have a bit of a chat to Bruce now. And Warwick is a guy that I'm really proud of. He's our Chief Underwriting Officer. But in chatting about this event, as I mentioned, he's got his green number, he's run it 10 times, and there's so many synergies between life and business and Comrades. And I think Bruce summed it up. And there's one word I'm going to remember from today, it's fussbait. And I think in times like this, with all the challenges going on in South Africa, South Africans have this amazing ability to fussbait. And I think it's a lot, Comrades is a great lesson, you know, for me, is to what makes South Africans so special. So fussbait is one word that I'm remembering. But Warwick, you've got some questions, and I think we've got, you know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We could just love you to have a chat to Bruce informally, and then we'll open it up at the end. I'd like to just sum up some of the covers that iTOO does around these sort of events, and we'll have some time for questions from some of the participants. So Warwick, over to you, and let's have a chat with Bruce and you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Bruce.
Warwick's,
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You know, if okay, I shan't say anything more. I'm actually blushing, but be that as it may. Bruce, yeah, I think I just echo what everybody says. It's an iconic event. I think your name is synonymous with Comrades, and I think without you being present, I think the race wouldn't have got to the levels that it has. So thank you very much from myself and all the runners in South Africa.
Just shaking hands with one of the runners here.
No problem whatsoever. No problem.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions, statements and points to discuss and like your thoughts on. Yesterday or Sunday's race with Tete in the last 4 or 5 kilometers, Pitt was really determined, and for a novice to be running at that pace at the end of Comrades, that being Pitt, to chase Tete down, what do you think it takes for Pitt having done that? He's a novice, coming from Europe, never run the race before, maybe being overawed by the situation, but to chase Tete down in the last 2-3 kilometers, to come second within 3 seconds. What do you think it took him to do that?
He is extraordinary. I'm fortunate enough to have had a brief chat to him on Sunday with a lot of the winners who were together. And let me tell you, he is so angry. He is smoldering. He's absolutely on fire. He's not happy with second. He was absolutely spitting mad because he nearly won it. And I think he is a name for the future. If he doesn't get it, you know, the danger is when you've had a great run like that, you overdo it, because what happens is Comrades runners are not frightened of hard work. They're not frightened of hard training. They're frightened of the 4-letter swear word to a Comrades runner is rest. They don't like that. And so he ran unbelievably. I can't believe your novice run. I mean, my novice run, my first run, I was so terrified of the race. I came 43rd in 6 hours, 5 minutes, you know, and then I kind of improved a bit the next year, improved a bit. It took me 5 years to win. Well, he nearly won, as you said, he nearly won it in his first run, and he just wasn't overawed by anyone. And I think he mistimed his attack at the end. And I can tell you one thing, runners, the next day have got the sore legs, as you know, after running a down run. Tete Dijana's got a sore neck. as well,
Yeah.
because he did it like this, crick in his neck the whole time, looking at his shoulder. And I think we're looking at a Pete, what's it, Wiersma?
Pete
I think,
Wiersma,
yeah, looking at a future winner.
Okay.
But as long as he doesn't overdo it, and quite often they race too often, they run too many races because they love it, and then they double their mileage or whatever. And so one of my other sayings for Comrades runners is and it could apply to business. Once you've got a good formula for success, my saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, that old saying, don't just keep doing what you're doing because it's working. You know, maybe you tinker with it a little bit because you can improve that little bit here, or you say, I was a little bit weak on the hills, so I need to do a little bit more hill work or whatever, but don't change the overall thing. And one of the advantages of running where I do, which is quite often in the VIP section or whatever, was sometimes run with well-known people. And this is a little known fact, but I ran a marathon, London Marathon, with Gordon Ramsay, the chef. And people don't know, Gordon Ramsay's got 3 Comrades medals. He's run 3 Hell's Kitchens, has run 3 Comrades.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. He's got 3. And you know, obviously, this is we're having an open debate here, so I'll leave out the bad language. But he, with a lot of words, imagine, he says Comrades is a beep tough race, Bruce. You know, but
it shows you've got to be cooked to run.
Yeah, and he's proud of it. And his point is, I know why you've won so many, Bruce. He said, because it's the same reason that I can produce a perfect lemon meringue pie. And he explained to us the lemon meringue pie is one of the hardest things to do, because you've got to get the lemon exactly right, the right color, the right mixture of tart and sweet. You've got to get the meringue on top. It mustn't be burnt, but it mustn't be too. Anyway, he was explaining, he said, because you've got a recipe. You've got a recipe for success and you just repeat it. And he said, I have too. I've got a recipe for a lemon meringue pie, and I never change it. And so it comes out beautifully every single time. And that's the kind of lesson, I think, I hope that the youngster does exactly the same as he did in training next year, and he'll win.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for that. One other question on Gerda and the record. Frith's record was from 1989.
Yeah.
It was broken this year. I need a calculator to work out how many years that is, but it's a very long time.
Yeah.
Why the men's record has up and down been broken fairly regularly through the years and decades. Why has it taken so long for the ladies' record to go? Is it the ladies, just no quality ladies, no offense, ladies, no real good athletes, or was it actually just such a tough record to break, notwithstanding the distance?
Yeah, I think it was just a tough, way ahead of its time. And there are some records, my down run record lasted for about 20 years. So there are some times that are set that are very hard to beat. And then I think there was almost, and that, again, something that you can apply to business. I think there was this negative thinking with a lot of people that it can't be broken. So therefore don't try. In other words, people are putting a barrier up straight away, saying we can't reach those heights. We can't break it. And I think a lot of the women just thought we can't do it, so let's not bother. And one of the other reasons is, I don't know if you can remember Caroline Warsman from about 6 years ago. She went for it. Caroline, she went for the record that year, and she was on target the whole way, and then she died at the end. If you remember, she fell backwards. She fell over the police motorbike, and she got caught in the last 2 kilometers by Shane Bosman, who went past her and won it. And it was kind of even more of a warning to say, if you go for Frith's record, at the end, you blow up and you die, and then you don't win. But what happened on Sunday was all the stars aligned, if you know what I mean, all the correct stars aligned. A perfect morning, cold in Pietermaritzburg, but then not too hot later on. A short course, and it's important to emphasize, we don't actually talk about records. We tend to talk about fastest times. It's fastest times. And so a lot of people do the analysis. They say, well, what speed per kilometer was Bruce running? What speed per kilometer was Alan Robb running? That's how what speed per kilometer was Firth running, but and so it aligned, and then finally it was an athlete like Gerda, who is she's just remarkable.
Amazing.
You know, all those factors put together, and bang, it's going to happen. You know, it just is going to happen. Yeah.
One last question from me before we open it to the floor, and as I'm conscious of time, I don't want to hog it all. So, talking about the best times possible, do you think there'll be come a time when the records will the gap between them being broken will just get extraordinarily long? Is there a finite level to either the up or down run record?
No,
or is it just the human race.
Question, that question's been asked so often about the 100 meters. You know, the men's and women's 100 meters at the Olympic Games, and yet they still chip away at it. You know, they still Usain Bolt, and then somebody else will come along. You know, it obviously gets harder and harder to do. But when it's an plus minus 90 kilometer race, there's so much space in there to improve the record. You know, there's so much, so I can see it. Yeah, maybe not huge chunks being taken off, but I can see it being broken. I don't know what it would be. Maybe it'll be, the men's record will be close to 5 hours by the time I die or whatever. You know, women's record down at 5.5. You know, no, there's plenty of space to break the record.
Okay. So just from me, and maybe you can close off once you've taken a couple other questions from the forum. For the average Joe sitting on the couch or average person watching on TV, the Comrades is daunting, but it is doable.
Yeah.
What is the first step for them to get off the couch and get going? Is it a park run? Is it walk for life, park run, progress? Is it a year's goal or 18 months goal? Okay,
well, first step is that they should buy my book called The Winged Messenger, which is named after Hermes. You know, the emblem, the logo on the Comrades medal. The Winged Messenger, there he is. But funny enough, because I wrote a book exactly that about my first Comrades, and my first Comrades was from 0 to Comrades in a year. And by 0, I mean, I was a bit student, typical student. What do? You eat unhealthy food, you party a lot, you know, whatever, and you do enough work to pass your degree, you know, every year so that you can come back the next year. And my first run was 10 minutes. I ran for 10 minutes around the Wits rugby field. That was my first run. And what I did correctly was that I made it so easy that I had no problem the next day with going out and doing another 10 minutes. And then after about a week, I thought, okay, let's go big. Let's try and run for 15 minutes. You know, and from there, literally in a year, I ran Comrades. And now, of course, you mentioned it. A great stepping stone is parkrun. We've got a hashtag which is parkrun to Comrades. And there's so many people who start off doing a 5K, and a year later or 2 years later, they're standing on the start line of Comrades, and they run Comrades. You've just got to do it, and consistency. Again, consistency is the key. Just keep smoldering away, keep plugging away. You keep on going, and then you join a running club. You know, you have to anyway to run a race like Comrades. And those experienced runners will look after you, guide you, coach you, and take you through the whole step all the way to you. The only thing you got to do is run the Comrades on Comrades Day. They'll get you to the start line.
Thank you. Thanks, Bruce. So Bruce, on behalf of I2 and everybody, thank you very much. Just as anybody that able could just pose 1 or 2 questions quickly for Bruce. Then.
I've got time. I don't mind.
Okay.
You got time, Bruce. So while you're talking about running one Comrades, Bruce, there's a question from Betsy that says, Bruce, will you run one more Comrades?
Will I run one more Comrades? Can I ask Jill, my wife, to go away and just go and get me some coffee?
And then you can answer. We'll stop the recording.
No, you know what? There's a chance. Unfortunately, I've lost the cartilage in my one knee, but I might have an op. I'm thinking about it, and if I did run one, it would be the most iconic one. That's going to be the 100th, 2027. I was thinking in the back. I got a little thought here, and I don't mind. You see, I'm completely relaxed with coming in, Warwick, in the last hour, and getting a big Clapper medal. I would be sobbing. You know, I'll be crying. I'll be so emotional. So, yeah, maybe that one.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I'll see you there on the start line. Yeah, that one's going to be oversubscribed. Wow. That's going to have a lot of.
So maybe we can sponsor
5,000.
Warwick and Bruce to run the 100th Comrades together. There's a challenge to work towards for both of you.
Yeah, Warwick.
That's well worth it.
We might
Yeah.
even work out some prize money on that one for you, Bruce.
Thank you. Yeah.
Or maybe just give him new running shoes.
Sorry.
I think a lot of what you covered has answered a lot of the questions. I mean, people were talking about joining parkrun and then having to, and then you've answered having to join a running club.
Yes.
That's definitely one of them. I'm just scrolling up to see if there's a lot of congratulations and inspirational talk about fuss bait. Some people taking that concept around the world with them. Just scrolling quickly.
So maybe Bruce, one question that I saw in the chat group as well is how much does the shorter distance this year contribute to these records? Because it's actually not a record, right? It's the fastest time.
Best time. Massively, you know, it is a massive contribution from the distance. I mean, it was almost 2 kilometers, you know, shorter. So at the speed of Tete Dijana, you're talking, you know, 6.5 or 7 minutes that it took off the time. So put that onto his time, and it gives you, you know, an idea of what he would have run on what I would call a normal. So a normal down run is 90. We've always said it's 90. And a lot of the old timers, we've been teasing the novices and saying to them, this 80, that's not a Comrades, 87.7 down run. That's not a down run. And we were teasing them, saying things like, I think they're going to give you a slightly smaller medal this year because it doesn't count if it's only 87.7. But of course it does. And so my message to people, when I was talking at running clubs, I do a lot of talks at running clubs before Comrades, pretty much in demand there. And I said to every single runner that I was talking to, this is your best chance. If you want that Bill Rowan medal for sub 9, or you want a silver for sub 7.5, whatever it is, this is your best chance. Don't waste it, because 87.7 might not happen again. And then in addition to that, we were looking ahead and seeing the weather forecast and saying, and here's even another blessing from Hermes, the winged messenger, the god of the roads. He's giving you a beautiful day to run it on as well. So if you don't do it this year, you might not. And I promise you, when the gun went, they shot out of there. I mean, it was amazing to watch it on television. Gerda was out of there, like out of bang, like champagne coming out the top of a champagne bottle, gone. You know, because they all kind of knew this is it. This is our best shot.
Bruce, a technical question. What is your preferable fitness watch? Do you have and why? You know, what do you have?
Watch.
Yeah, just particularly, I guess, because
what have I got? It's a Fitbit I've got.
It's a black one.
Yeah, it's a black one. No, so funnily enough, in my day, we used to have these little old Timex, I don't know, wristwatches that had 2 functions. They could do a stopwatch or tell you the time of day. But funnily enough, again, going back to my belief that racing is an art, I hardly looked at my watch on race day. Hardly looked at it, because the distance markers are all weird. As I said, what does 77 mean? How far have I run to get here? Was the race 90 Ks or was it 88 point, so you can't measure what you're doing. And then I would just run on feel. And also because I'm trying to win, you run, what's my opposition doing? That guy's going. In 1982, down run, Bothers Hill, Alan Robb took off. He just took off. He started going really fast. And you had 5 seconds to make up your mind. Are you going with him or are you going to wait back? And we were a little group of about 10 of us in a group. And I just decided, it's like an art. It's a feel. And we are hunter-gatherers. Human beings are hunter-gatherers. That's our roots, our origins. I'm an archaeologist. I taught the subject a bit. We are hunter-gatherers. And we knew exactly how fast to run an animal, an antelope, to exhaustion, and then kill it and eat it. And that is intrinsically in us still. And so at that point, when Alan went, I thought, I got to go with him, because if I don't go with him, he's going to win this race, because he's going to break that umbilical cord between himself and the chasing pack. So I went with him, and that was the race right there. And it was the same, I think. Gerda on Sunday, and she coming out of Drummond, coming out of halfway, when she and Duncan, she saw Duncan, he said, go ahead. She said, this is it, I got to go now. It's like inside, it's built into you. It's yeah. And she was off. And so the watch is not something, I used to glance at my watch at halfway, going through Drummond, I'd look at my watch and say, okay, it's going to be a fast one this year or so. And then I would look at it at the end a little bit to see if I'm on a record. But I never knew that I was on a record. I just ran, trying to win. I was just trying to win, you know. And if you had offered me a win in a very, very, very slow time, I would still take it. It's a win. You know, you've won.
Yeah, but Bruce, on that specific point, with the kilometers going backwards, after running for 6.5, 7 hours, doing the maths to count backwards, then recalculating 7 minutes 21 a k to finish under 11 hours. By the time you've got that maths done, you're 5 kilometers down the road, and that time means nothing anymore, and you have to restart again. So it's hectic.
Yeah. I got a dodgy mark for maths in matric anyway, so now try and throw fatigue and dehydration and screaming crowds and cramps and everything, and you're trying to work out what page. No, just run. You know, that's it. Just run.
Bruce, maybe we've got time for one last one.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, the story of Comrades, as you say, is often about the unsung heroes, and we always stand there, you know, with the guys with their back to the runners, finishing, you know, firing off those respective guns. And this year at the 12-hour, the final cutoff was interesting for me because, and the question is also come through, is why were there no runners coming? You know, because normally you get this diving and falling, and then obviously we saw that gentleman coming through behind the gun. But was there a particular reason? Had they swept everyone off the track, or you know, off the road per se?
So there was a reason, and I'm going to be honest, Comrades messed it up. They messed it up. There was somebody at the entrance who stopped the runners coming in. And I think what happened was some official somewhere didn't understand the iconic nature of the finish. And so I think what happened was when they heard there was 1 minute to go, somebody stopped them from coming into the stadium. Because if you come into the stadium with 1 minute to go, you're not going to make it. You're not, because it's 400 meters. You have to run. You have to run almost like wait for Nico speed to get that last medal. But they missed the point. And the point is, it's to see, and you don't want to see human misery, but it's to see the disappointment, but also to be inspired by the fact that those people, they still go through the finish line. They don't get a medal, but they complete the journey. And they cut that out. And it was first thing I did was phone. You know, I don't have any power kind of I'm not on any of the committees or anything. But I said to the guys, you screwed up. That was bad. That was really bad. Everyone has to see the final the person who just makes it and the person who just doesn't make it, and they cut that out.
Yeah, it was a pity, and it seemed unusual, and
it wasn't great.
Thanks for the explanation. Yeah, I'm sure it was just
Bruce, before I say goodbye, I think we will be buying some of your books and giving away some of our brokers as inspiration. So I've just committed to some more books.
Let's commit to buying 50 books from Bruce. So Bruce will get in touch with you, buy 50 books from you. And I think
we'll get them to you. Yeah, and I'll sign them all. Or if you send me a list of names, I'll maybe send me a list of names, and maybe if that.
Okay. Bruce's battery went flat.
Bruce is frozen just as he was going to close the sale there. But I mean, maybe just to wrap up, we will commit to buying 50 of Bruce's books, and we'll get them signed, and we'll maybe have. We're planning on having a function where we are trying to get Gerda and Tete to come and visit us at iTOO. So look out for communication on that. And we'll have some of Bruce's books to give away, and really a great discussion today. So I think a few takeouts for me. I mean, one is that insurance, I think this is a great way to show that insurance is actually can be really fun and sexy and interesting. So out of just an event like Comrades, a team like our experts here, Greg and Melita at iTOO, can ensure the liability of an event. And if anything goes wrong, we can ensure the cancellation of events and recovery of the costs or profits. And of course, what we ensured this last weekend at Comrades was the prize indemnity, and a real way to leverage for event organizers and bump up prizes and attract a lot of participants and interest. So some really cool insurance behind this legendary day that is Comrades Marathon, a great South African event. And I think the last thing to end off just a really good time now as we go into winter and load shedding and many economic challenges in South Africa. I think Comrades for South Africans is a great example of fuss bait. So to all of our brokers, iTOO team members and South Africans out there, let's fuss bait. Let's remember the lessons that we've heard from today, and Comrades and Bruce and Warwick. Let's fuss bait, and anything is possible if we pull together as South Africans and fuss bait. Thank you for a great session, all of you for joining.